let's talk about the Rings of Power show and why this show is not a good adaptation. I want to quick say that I am not going to complain about stuff that people complain about online. That does not matter. All that matters is that it is a good adaptation. If you like the show, dislike it, or think it is okay, don't think that you're betraying the franchise. You're betraying Tolkien. This show is the most expensive show in television history, and it shows. The cinematography, production design, and score is great, so pretty much the filmmaking style is S tier. Now let's talk about my issues with the reason why I think the show is the way it is. To me, it's made by the wrong people, and they don't have all the rights to Tolkien's lore. If you really want to know more about the Second Age, read the Calbeth part of the Silmarillion book and the Second Age part of the Unfinished Tales book. First, I will talk about Season 1. What's wrong about this show is the timeline. So the creation of the Rings of Power was around 1200 to 1600 of the Second Age, and the Ar-Pharazôn downfall of Numenor timeline was 3200s of the Second Age. The entire show takes place during the same timeline. It could be that Amazon does not have all the rights to Tolkien's works since they don't have the characters of the beginning of the Second Age. Let's get to the Elrond story. So Elrond is hired by Gil-galad to go to Khazad-dûm, where the dwarves live. He's mostly there to get Mithril because, this is where fans get angry. This story arc is original. It's not connected to Tolkien's lore, and it is totally wrong about the lore. Season 1 of the show says Mithril comes from a Silmaril, and a Silmaril was from a tree, and then the tree was fought between an elf and a Balrog. Lightning struck the tree, and that created Mithril. In the lore, there are 3 Silmarils, and they came from the 2 trees of Valinor, and Fëanor grabbed the lights of the 2 trees and created 3 Silmarils. So the reason why the elves want Mithril so bad is because without Mithril, they will die in Middle-earth. That never happened in the lore. Galadriel, who thinks that Sauron is still alive in the show, she was sailing with elves in a ship and just jumps and leaves the ship and tries to swim to Middle-earth. Trying to swim from Valinor and Middle-earth is like swimming from Hawaii to California. Good luck. She meets this man named Halbrand. Elendil finds Galadriel and Halbrand and takes them to Numenor. Galadriel convinces Tamriel to sail to Middle-earth to fight against the orcs in the Southlands. Galadriel believes that Sauron wants the Southlands to be his base. When they get there, they defeat the orcs and their leader named Adar, but a man gets a broken sword and uses it as a key to unlock Sauron's base. You see a full volcanic eruption which eventually creates Mordor in Tolkien's lore. That is not how it goes. In Tolkien's story, Morgoth, the original Dark Lord of Tolkien's universe, created Mordor. There are people who died because of the volcanic eruption, but there are ones who survived as well. Galadriel takes Halbrand to Eregion. Galadriel meets Elrond and Celebrimbor. Halbrand makes Galadriel feel suspicious because Halbrand is hanging around with Celebrimbor and helping him out. Guess what? Halbrand is Sauron. They are the same person. Galadriel convinces Celebrimbor to make 3 rings since they have Mithril. In the canon, the 3 rings of power from the elves were created after the 7 dwarven rings and the 9 rings for men, not before as they are portrayed in the series. You also have Harfoots in the show series, who are one of the 3 breeds of the hobbits. They do not appear in the Second Age in Tolkien's lore. Hobbits appear in Tolkien's story in the Third Age. In the show series, you have a main female hobbit named Elenor and her friend Poppy. They are pretty much a gender swapped of Frodo and Sam from Tolkien's story. Elenor meets a man who came out of a meteor. The man from the meteor is called the Stranger in the show. The hobbits, along with the Stranger, fights the cultists in the end of the show and defeats them. In the final scene of the Hobbit story, in the first season of the show, they hint that the Stranger might be Gandalf. Why? because he said always follow your nose. And that line is not from the books, that is from Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring movie. Season 2 is closer to Tolkien's lore than Season 1. Season 1 was pretty much all filler. Halbrand, also known as Sauron, comes back to Eregion. I like the idea of Sauron first disguising himself as a man before turning into Anantar, the Lord of Gifts. I think it was really cool the way he made his transformation to reveal himself as Anantar, the Lord of Gifts. The Anantar Lord of Gifts created the rings along with Celebrimbor and the elves. This is canon with Tolkien's story. I like that all the rings look different in the series. I like the designs and that you can tell them apart. However, I don't understand how Durin III gets his ring of power to work for him when the One Ring is not even created yet. There was a scene in the trailer that I got worried about when I saw Balrog. I was afraid they were going to show the fall of Khazad-dûm because I knew that happened in the Third Age in Tolkien's story. Luckily, the dwarves prevented the Balrog from going after Khazad-dûm. I also thought it was dumb in the series that Galadriel did not tell Celebrimbor that Halbrand was Sauron, because Celebrimbor would not bring Sauron back to Eregion and the Rings of Power would not be created, since you had Gil-galad force Galadriel to tell him and Elrond that Halbrand was Sauron. I am happy to see Galadriel, Gil-galad, and Círdan put their rings on. That bad subplot stopped the elves from dying because they were able to save themselves by putting on the rings. I am going to talk about the Adar story. Now, as there were things that upset me more than Season 1, I like the idea of this elf in the halfway corruption to an orc. That is an interesting idea, but what I hate about the Adar story is that they say he is the father of the orcs. These two scenes from Season 2 got me angry. The first scene was a scene of seeing an orc with a lady orc holding on to a baby orc, and the second scene was seeing the orcs get cremated. Those scenes made me angry. The orcs are soulless in Tolkien's rendition. Tolkien did not want his orcs to have meaning. Plus, I did not like that Adar sent the orcs to attack Eregion instead of Sauron, like they did in the canon. Sauron does that in the books right after he creates his One Ring. I do like watching the battle in the 7th episode. I think the fight sequence and camera work was well done. So here we go. Let's get to probably the most controversial scene in the show. Elrond kisses Galadriel. So the reason why people hate this is because Galadriel is Elrond's mother-in-law. Elrond marries Galadriel's daughter, Celebrian. Elrond and Celebrian have a child named Arwen, and if you've seen the movies and the books, Arwen marries Aragorn. I am going to be completely honest and say that if Tolkien's works never existed, I would probably think this makes sense because they look the same age. Plus, there was a lot of scenes with them in the show, but taking Tolkien's lore to heart, yeah, it is bad. It's like Twilight Breaking Dawn. In the series, the Stranger and Elnor goes to Ruin, which is where the Easterlings are. Elnor gets swept away with Poppy in a storm. They survive the storm and meet Stors. Stors is one of the 3 breeds of the hobbits. One famous Stor from Tolkien's lore is Smeagol, also known as Gollum. With the Stranger all by himself, he meets Tom Bombadil. Why? In the books, Tom Bombadil lives all the way to the west of Middle-earth, in the Old Forest, not in the east where Ruin is according to the show. How this character is portrayed in the show is nothing like he's portrayed in the Fellowship of the Ring book. In the book, he is barely an interventionist, and he is jolly. In the show, he is very serious. The actor who got to play him does not even look like Tom Bombadil. He looks like somebody else dressing up like Tom Bombadil. He looks young to play him, and the beard looks fake. Tom pretty much is like a mentor to the Stranger in the show. In the season finale, the Stranger encounters the Dark Wizard. To fans, that might be Saruman. The Stranger defeats the Dark Wizard after Elnor, Poppy, and the Stors encounters the Stranger, and once the Stranger finds his staff, they say, Gandalf? Oh, it's official. It's Gandalf. I laughed a little bit when the stranger meets Tom again, and the stranger says, Gandalf. That is what they're gonna call me. So as you can see, the series took many liberties in changing the story from what Tolkien had originally intended. While I will continue to watch the series, I would prefer different showrunners. I would also prefer that they would have all the rights to Tolkien's works in order to stay true to his story.